The Atlanta Braves hold off the Detroit Tigers to win the series, lock down a sweep, and have their best winning streak of the season. Let's talk about it.
This is the Braves Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Braves. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to the Braves Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your Atlanta sports teams each and every day, even if you don't necessarily want to talk about the Atlanta Falcons right now. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, host of the Locked On, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. That is Jake Mastroianni, host of Locked On Braves. Follow him on social media at Shortstop Ball. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. Jake has a ton of content coming this week, and some of it's going to be about this game. The Atlanta Braves take down the Tigers 6-2, despite it getting a little bit dramatic late, Jake, and end up perfect 7-0 road trip and an 8-game winning streak heading into the final week with 3 versus the Nats and 3 versus the Pirates. Before we get into this game, I want to ask you, Jake, do you think the Atlanta Braves, does it feel like they're ever going to lose a game again the rest of this season?
I mean, they might not. You look at the schedule coming up this week, it would not surprise me in the slightest. Look, I said all along, at some point the Braves are going to go on a streak like this. I didn't think it would be the last week of the season before they decided to do it when it was too little too late. But yeah, I mean, they're finally winning games that they should be winning.
Can I point out that they have not lost a game since you publicly called them out on your podcast for having given up on the season? So slander works, everybody, if you weren't aware. And that's the kind of power that Locked On Braves has. So you guys need to be subscribed. Make sure you're listening and watching every single one. All right. I want to start this one off with the player of the game. I have a proposal, and I want to see if you feel the same way that I do.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
All right, so my player of the game, I think I want to give it to Spencer Strider because it was only 5 innings, yes, but he showed you, and I think he answered a lot of questions about, like, that he's already been answering, but he did a really good job of this, of if that fastball velocity never comes back, right, which I still think it will, but if it doesn't, he can still be a quality number 2 pitcher. You saw him today. He goes 5 innings, 6 hits. Only one of those was for extra bases. He walked 3. He struck out 6. And the curveball was a very big part of what he did today. He wasn't able to throw the fastball in the zone as much as I feel like he's been doing recently, right? Like, I think it was last time out or 2 times out, he was like a 75, 80% in the zone with the four-seam fastball. Today was only 54%. But you saw how the fastball not being on, he was still able to not give up runs because he could steal strikes with the curveball. He got 5 whiffs on 9 swings with that curveball as well. The slider's still really good. And so to me, this was the first time you saw where nothing was bad, but he didn't really have the control of the fastball that you would want. And he still got through 5 innings with no runs allowed. And to me, that was kind of the last step that we needed to see outside of the velocity to know that he was going to be a number 1, number 2 caliber pitcher next season.
Yeah, I mean, look, to watch this start, and he was battling, and it looked like he was aiming a lot with that fastball today, particularly later in the start. I think the regular too said it to me on social media. Spencer Strider is certainly more interesting to watch as a viewer now that he's become a pitcher rather than just a hurler. And I don't know that I completely agree with all of that statement, but I will say it's definitely not as easy. I would say it's more of a fun watch. I would rather watch him pitch the way that he did before, where it was just straight domination. He didn't really have to worry about too much where it was going, just as long as it was in the zone because the stuff was that good. Yeah. And now he has to be a little bit more strategic, and he has to see what's on and what's working. And I really liked in this one, especially in that 4th and 5th inning, in some big spots, he went to that curveball and had the confidence to do so. I think that maybe more than anything for me with the rest of the season, maybe he'll get one more start. I hope they just kind of hold him out and let him pitch the last game of the season, kind of figure that out somehow. But if he does get one more, whatever the case, I think the biggest thing for me for Strider going forward is he seems to be gaining confidence in the third pitch. And that's something he's never really had. at least at the big league level. And he's admitted himself, hasn't really needed it because the fastball and slider was that good. He just didn't need it. And why change something if you're one of the best pitchers in baseball? But that's not the case right now with the diminished velocity. So he's had to kind of lean on a third pitch a little bit more. I know he throws four, there's a changeup a little bit too, but three, now that curveball is becoming a pitch that he's going to in big spots like we saw in this game. So I think what I'll take away from Spencer Strider at the end of this year is that he has learned to become more of a well-rounded pitcher, a complete pitcher, and a pitcher that, can lean on more than just a fastball and slider and isn't so reliant on the big fastball velocity, which again, as we say all the time, it's still averaging 95, 96.
Yeah, it's still good.
Like he's floating the baseball up there, but it doesn't, it clearly makes a big difference between when you got 97, 98, 99, and you can miss location middle with those and not as much with 94, 95, 96. But again, just bring it all back, that curveball. I thought in this one, that was the big takeaway for me, that he was able to go to that, get out of some big jams with that pitch and have the confidence to do so.
Yeah, it was that was kind of the just heartening to see, simply because I just don't feel like we've had that point for him yet. Like he did it, but not necessarily that good. I do want to give a lot of credit here for the offense and just the way that they were able to, like, for the most part, kind of battle through. A lot of guys had multiple hits here. Vidal Brujan making a last-minute start after Nacho Alvarez had a cut on his throwing hand. He gets 2 hits. Drake Baldwin 2 for 4. Ronald Acuna Jr. 2 for 4. Each of those guys scores a run and drives a run in. Ha-Sung Kim homers again, 2 RBI, scores a run himself. It felt like, 11 hits, 6 runs. And when you look at it, multiple different guys had 2 out RBI. Michael Harris did. Ronald Acuna did. Drake Baldwin did. And they were able to do enough with runners in scoring position, right? 3 for 10. It makes me feel like a lot of the bad juju that was maybe here in this offense earlier in the year has kind of worked its way out. And I do think it's fitting that you started off with a 0-7 road trip and you're going to finish with a 7-0 road trip. Kind of balances out. But I do think the offense, a lot of these guys played really well today, and it just balances out some of the poor performances in those situations, 2 outs, runners in scoring position they had earlier in the year.
It's definitely gotten better in the second half. Now, it couldn't get much worse than it was in the first half, but it has gotten better. And yeah, this game, and your player of the game is Strider. I think that's probably the right call, just because there's so many offensive players. It's hard to choose just one. They all kind of contributed. So
they did well, but nobody dominated on offense.
Yeah. But Olsen, Acuna, and Baldwin, back to back in the lineup, they all reached 3 times in this game. And so everybody just doing a little bit, contributing, being able to add on late, I thought was key too, especially with what happened there in the 9th inning. So a lot of good stuff from this whole team, but the Strider and then the offense just kind of top to bottom. That's what we've been looking for. We've been looking for that top to bottom, and now you get a Ha-Sung Kim down there. And maybe he hasn't quite made the plays that Nick Allen has made. Even today is a tough short hop, a play that like I said, would have been a tough one, but one we've probably seen Nick Allen make before. But he's given you something at the bottom of that order. Nacho yesterday, unfortunately, has the best game of his career. Then he gets hurt and doesn't play the next game. But then Brujan comes in with a couple of hits. Michael Harris gets a couple of hits. It was really only Ozuna and Profar that really struggled today. Outside of that, everybody contributed.
Yeah, and it's just really rare to see Jurickson Profar struggle like this. 0-5. Yeah. He didn't strike out, but he didn't walk any. That's a little unusual. All right, when we come back, I want to talk about that 9th inning and kind of how it almost went off the rails, as well as one of the big stories I think I've seen a lot of people asking about since this winning streak's been going on is what it's doing to Atlanta's lottery odds. We'll do that next, right here on the Braves Postcast. This episode's brought to you by Zippix Toothpicks. Whether you're looking for nicotine satisfaction or an energy boost, Zippix has you covered with their nicotine or caffeine-infused toothpicks. For nicotine users, Zippix provides a discreet way to satisfy cravings and the hand-to-mouth habit without smoking. Zippix can also be a helpful tool as you work to reduce your dependence on vaping. It's available in 6 great flavors. They have both 2 milligram and 3 milligram nicotine options. And if you need energy without the crash, their caffeine toothpicks are a game changer. I love them for road trips. They give you the energy to stay up without the jitters. The flavors taste great. You don't have to necessarily stop for as many rest stops. So go to zipixtoothpicks.com, use code LOCKEDONMLB for 10% off your first order. Now, must be 21 or older to order, and a warning, nicotine is an addictive chemical. But that's zipixtoothpicks.com, ZIPPIX, toothpicks.com, promo code locked on. Zip more, smoke less with Zipix Toothpicks. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth. You know, they might not be counting their 401k or investments, things like that. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table, and that's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. And Monarch is built for people with busy lives. And if you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you because Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. All right, Jake. So the turning point of the game, I think I'm going to argue, ended up being the ninth inning and how Detroit almost took this one away from the Braves.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Probably should have played that before I said it, but it's fine. We're still learning these prompts, guys. I'm a little curious about the decision to put Dylan Dodd into the game, and I understand this could have been one of those scenarios where they didn't think the Braves were going to score 3 runs in the top of the inning. I would have loved to see Giancarlo Lara make his debut simply because his parents flew in from the Caribbean to be in Detroit for this game and didn't get to see him pitch. But it goes a little rough, right? Walk, double, which gives them a run. Kerry Carpenter singles, runners on first and third. And then sac fly puts a second run on the board. At that point, they go to Raisel Iglesias. Was it the right move originally to put Dodd in there, you think, in the ninth? Was this something where, like, should they have just gone to Iglesias anyway? Or was it something where you don't really have many other guys who haven't thrown this weekend? You got to go with somebody.
So I think Dodd was up earlier in the game, and I think he was just ready, and it was a close game. And I think that's ultimately why he went with Dodd, because Dodd was already up. He was ready. You might as well go ahead and use him. I think the right call, and this is selfish, I would have liked to see Giancarlo Lara when they got to the 6 runs. Let the kid debut, and you could have done the same thing. If he went in there and first 3 or 4 batters, he gets in trouble, you bring in Iglesias. You do the same thing. So that's what I would have liked to see, and I think that's what he should have done. But I think he was thinking that already had Dodd up, probably don't want to mess around too much and throwing a kid out there in his debut against a team that is fighting for a postseason spot. So you don't want to play around too much, which he didn't. Once Dodd got in trouble, you brought in Iglesias to shut it down. But I just would have liked to see Lara. I mean, the fact we didn't see Lara at all this weekend's a bit disappointing. Certainly one of the reasons to watch right now. But I think it was more so just Dodd was already hot. We're going to go ahead and bring him in.
Yeah, and I do think some of it plays into this as well. Of it is the top of the order. It's not like you had 7, 8, and 9 coming up. I mean, Jahmai Jones had pinch hit for Parker Meadows earlier in the game, and like he is coming up to bat. So it's the top of the order. And I think that's maybe a little bit of it too, is Dodd's already up. You don't want to just completely burn him. But then 2, top of the order, it's not the best situation to your point, throw a youngster into and let him make his debut there. Although I just feel bad because I would have loved to have seen him do that. I think there's a big overarching takeaway from this. A lot of people have expressed concerns about, and it's the draft lottery and where Atlanta stands as of now.
This is what you'll be talking about.
All right, so with this win today, the Braves now move from 4th in the draft lottery odds to 5th. And this is per tankathon.com. They track this for all the major sports. Atlanta has a league best 8-game winning streak right now. And with moving to 5th place, because they do not hold the tiebreaker over the A's, Atlanta's odds of the number 1 overall pick are now 6.55%. I don't want to speak for you, Jake, but I feel like 4th, 5th, 6th weren't really it wasn't really a big deal where you were in that span because the different tiers, right? 1 and 2 are pretty high, 27%, 22%. Pick number 3, 16.8%. And all of those teams have win totals in the 60s. And then 4 to 5 to 6 is like 9% to 6.5 to 4.5. The difference isn't that big between 4 and 6. Is it a bigger deal to let the guys finish positive with the wins? Or would it have been a bigger deal to somehow find a way to lose 7 consecutive games versus winning 7 when the difference in the odds is probably going to be 6.5% to 9%?
This might be a controversial answer here. It's better for them to lose. like I'm happy to watch them win. And as a fan, I'm certainly happy to see that, especially these games against the Tigers. Those were fun. You had the game on Saturday. You came back one late. Like as a fan, that's all great. From a team perspective and just thinking about what's best for my team going forward, it's better for them to lose because they could win the rest of these games for this next week and not lose again. Those don't carry over. Like it's not going to do much, in my opinion, going into 2026 when you're probably going to have a pretty different roster anyway. And I don't think the benefit of them finishing out this season on a strong note is going to do as much for them going into 2026 as what losing these games and getting a better draft pick would have done for the team going forward. Now, to your point, where they're at now, it doesn't make a huge difference between 4 and 6 and the draft odds. Where it made a difference was when they were looking to get a top 3 pick. Yeah. But the Twins, with the way that they played in the second half, they really took over that discussion. The White Sox were always going to be there. So at this point, it doesn't make that much of a difference. But yeah, I mean, it's again, I love watching my team win, and I like to see the success they're having. But if I'm just thinking future-wise, team perspective, it's better for them to lose than better for them to have a good feeling to the end of a terrible 2025 season.
Yeah. And I do think that's a valid take there. And I kind of struggle with this. I think part of it is, us doing this postcast and talking every day. A lot of my focus with this show with you is the immediate, right? What happened in this game we played, not the overall larger picture for the season. And so selfishly, I kind of want wins to talk about. But I do think that it's a fine line to try to walk to have guys perform well, but still lose. Right. Like I think it's a bigger deal for Ozzy to finish the year hot than it is, for the Braves to lose to get a better draft spot. And so I do think it's maybe a little bit of a different focus there. And it's a nice contrast. And I like the fact that we don't maybe necessarily agree on everything. Some people have said that you and I agree on everything. I think this is a nice little comparison. I just like the vibes and what it does, especially if you're trying to keep Ha-Seong Kim here. You want to show him that, like, hey, even in a bad season, this team is winning games, and the environment in the clubhouse is great, and this is a place you want to be. So I think both of our thoughts are perfectly valid, but I'm glad that we have a little bit of a disagreement there. I do want to point out real quick, the Cincinnati Reds now have the runway to the final wildcard spot because the Mets, LOL, the Mets. The New York Mets continue their collapse. They're collapsing just as bad as the Tigers are collapsing. It's the first time the Mets have not been guaranteed a playoff spot since early April. So let's all revel in that. The Braves may not be in the postseason, but the good chances are the Mets won't either. Real quick, next series in Atlanta this week, Monday through Wednesday. Mackenzie Gore versus Chris Sale against the Nationals on Monday. Brad Lord versus Hurston Waldrop on Tuesday. Andrew Alvarez versus Bryce Elder on Wednesday. And I want to point out, Jake, you did mention getting Strider that final start on Sunday. One way to get him an extra day of rest would be Charlie Morton was DFA'd this morning. I wonder if they try to pick him up. And if he starts on Saturday in Atlanta as a one final start before he retires, you can push Spencer Strider to Sunday because Strider would line up to Saturday. So we'll see what happens there. But again, Braves win this one 6-2. Take the series. It's a sweep. They're taking their 8-game win streak home this week against the Mets. Do me a favor, or against the Nationals. Sorry. Do me a favor. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review for the show, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to both Locked On Braves and Locked On Sports Atlanta. They were breaking down the Falcons loss over on the Falcon Squad show on Locked On Sports Atlanta. So stay tuned for that. And until next time, this has been the Braves Postcast.